This weekend, California Governor Gavin Newsom and state legislators will race to meet an important deadline to pass the state budget, or they're going to lose their pay. Actually, no, not really. Coming up, I'll tell you why that's all a farce and why the state budget is a complete disaster of wasteful spending, higher taxes, and dangerous policies. Coming up, what's really going on in the state budget process. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and California politicians are drunken sailors when it comes to their spending addiction. And I'm so sorry to offend drunken sailors by comparing them to California politicians. But we have a major fiscal crisis on our hands because Governor Gavin Newsom, state legislators, want to continue to raise taxes and want to continue to spend money recklessly on wasteful programs, boondoggles, giveaways. They are willing to cut programs that are actually necessary for you and me. Public safety programs, quality of life programs, but they are not willing to gut or cut the wasteful spending like free health care for people here illegally. I will tell you this, that the media will make a big deal this weekend about a deadline that the governor and the legislature have to meet in order to pass the budget. They'll say the governor and the legislature, they passed the budget. The deadline was June 15th, and with only moments left, they passed the budget. Actually, no, they didn't pass the budget. They basically did a scam where they passed a budget, but it's not the official budget. They'll continue to do games and accounting gimmicks for the next several weeks to try to paper over their fiscal problems and try to raise your taxes. Cal Matters kinda raises this. Dan Walters has a column saying California's budget charade reflects a 15-year-long conflict over the process. I'm glad that he calls it a charade because that's what it is. You see, Dan Walters points out that in 2010, I believe, 2010, there was a budget showdown where Abel Maldonado refused to cast a vote on the budget until Democrats agreed to place a measure on the 2010 ballot that would basically give us the terrible system of the top two vote getters. In other words, we're not going to have party nominations in the primary. Top two is going to be the reason, is going to be the way to do it. In exchange for doing that as well, they put another initiative on the ballot that said that if you want to pass a budget, it has to be done by June 15th, or the legislators will lose their pay. And it will no longer require a 2/3 vote to pass a budget. Now, the Democrats put this on the ballot because they didn't want Republicans to have a role or a voice in the budget process, because at the time, Republicans had enough votes to be a 1/3 block in the state assembly or the state senate, which means that they could actually say, wait a minute, we don't like this budget. We're not going to vote for it until you make reforms and changes. They had leverage. They could stop it and hold out. The Democrats didn't want Republicans to have any leverage at all. So they said, okay, no more of these, gamesmanship, no budget, drag the process on. We're going to say we're going to get tough. A simple majority vote to pass the budget and get it done on time, or you lose your pay, legislators. So June 15th is the deadline to pass the budget. What do? They pass a phony budget by June 15th with a simple majority vote. And in the process, they've stripped Republicans, the minority, of any leverage to try to create some sort of balance or sanity in the budget process. Look, I opposed the 2/3, the majority vote change, because I do believe that in this state, because of the extremism of these politicians, that we should basically have some sort of coming together in consensus on something as important as the state budget. So also why I believe that we should have a 2/3 vote for tax increases, because I want to make it hard. I want to make it hard for politicians to spend money. I want to make it hard for politicians to raise your taxes. That is a good thing to protect you, the taxpayer, to have these 2/3 votes. But what they did is they bamboozled voters with Proposition 25, lowered it to 50%, and said that the real reform in the measure is that politicians won't get paid if they don't do their work on time. They've basically passed a phony budget, what I call a get out of town, get my paycheck budget. Now, what is going on with the budget? It's completely filled with red ink. It's billions of dollars in debt. We started out with an official $73 billion budget shortfall. It's actually much more than that when you actually use true, honest accounting, and when you include the true cost of pensions and retiree healthcare. How is Newsom trying to bridge that gap? Well, it's all accounting gimmicks. Cal Matters talks about $21.5 billion in reserves that he raids. So in other words, he's breaking the piggy bank. He's raiding school reserves. He's raiding general rainy day fund reserves, a safety net reserve. Then he gets $19.1 billion by saying, oh, I promised to spend this years ago. We were going to spend this money, but we're not going to spend this extra money. He calls that a cut. Really? It's not a cut because you haven't spent the money. No one's going to notice that that's gone. So that's not something extraordinary. Then he goes on to say, we're going to reduce $81 million for prison beds. Wait, you're going to let more prisoners out of jail early with high crime? At Reform California this week, we blew the whistle on an even worse proposal that the legislators want. They say, hey, Newsom wants an $81 million cut, get rid of 4,500 beds. We think we should get rid of multiple prisons and a bunch of beds, like 20,000 beds, by cutting $1 billion. They're proposing $1 billion in cuts to the California prison system, which would force the early release of violent criminals onto our streets. And so we oppose that at Reform California. We're blowing the whistle on it, but guaranteed you're going to see a real cut in the budget in only one place: prison beds, which is the last thing we should be reducing at this point, given our crime wave. Another thing that Newsom is doing is he's proposing to increase businesses' tax burden by $18 billion. So tax hikes are filled throughout this budget, $18 billion of tax increases. And of course, Newsom says, oh, I am going to make real cuts. I'm going to slash 10,000 vacant state jobs. The horror. Literally, they're vacant. No one's getting a pink slip. No one's getting laid off. He thinks that that's really aggressive. I'm taking the axe to the budget. You just watch out. The pain and the suffering is real. 20,000 vacant positions are being eliminated. 20,000 phantom, non-existent employees of the state of California will lose their jobs. Oh, it's terrible. But we must make the tough decision. Oh, stop. And you notice the media, the lying liberal media. Here's KPBS lying, narrative driving with their false narrative. Governor slashes, as though this is aggressive, as though this is somehow like fiscally responsible. Ooh, vacant jobs eliminated on paper. It's a tree falling in the forest, no one's around. Well, the tree was never there in the first place, damn it. That's what this is akin to. Look, at Reform California, we believe that this state needs to be shaken up. That's why we are supporting better candidates for state assembly and state senate. And we are recruiting candidates for local government at the same time. We have our plain English voter guide that's available. And we want you to be part of our movement. Here's our voter guide here on our website, reformcalifornia.org, reformcalifornia.org. I'm going to need your help. First and foremost, sign up to get our voter guide so that you know what the ballot measures are. We give you the plain English description on the ballot measures and what candidates we've endorsed for state legislature, as well as all the way down to water board, mosquito abatement district, fire district, city council. We cover it all. We will email you the voter guide when it's ready, which is October 1st. We send it out right before the ballots hit because we literally are finishing the research on these candidates all the way up to that point. So I want to make sure it's in your inbox October 1st in time for you to use it and review it for your own voting decisions. Sign up on that website, reformcalifornia.org. First name, last name, email, phone, and zip code. Also, please chip in a contribution. I have to ask because we don't get major donors from people like George Soros or, the business lobbyists and PACs. We are grassroots funded entirely by people like you who know that California is on the wrong track and needs to be shaken up with better leadership. Consider putting in a contribution of as little as $5 helps put gas in the tank. We're going to need your help to power this movement going forward. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and smash that notification button so you can stay up to date on all the developments in California news and politics. Also, please visit the website, reformcalifornia.org, for ongoing news coverage and to join one of our campaigns in the fight to take back our state. If you can, please sign up as a volunteer or chip in a contribution. This episode of Reform California with Carl DeMaio, paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly 2024.